What's up, guys? Thank you so much for joining me. 2017 saw a massive flood of quality indie games coming to Nintendo Switch, but what about 2018? Well, today we're looking at my top 10 indie games coming to Nintendo Switch between now and the end of 2018. Let's do it. Kicking off the list, Flipping Death is the spiritual successor to Stick It to the Man, a 2013 puzzle platforming adventure by Zoink Games that was warmly received by most critics at the time. In this game, you play Penny, a woman who recently croaked and is now trying to find peace in the afterlife by helping the ghosts of others. The hook? You can flip the entire world from the afterlife to the real world with the press of a button to help you solve puzzles. The game's tone and aesthetic are heavily influenced by Tim Schafer's games, particularly The Cave and Broken Age. Thankfully, it was to the surprise of many that Zoink Games was able to match or at least pay respectful homage to Schafer's wit when it released Stick It to the Man over 4 years ago. So, if beautiful art and great writing are things you look for in a game, and you enjoy light platforming mixed with some good old-fashioned head-scratchers, this game might be for you. Flipping Death is currently set to release for the Switch in the first quarter of 2018. Next up is Dandara, which is actually slated for a December 2017 release, but it would be sad to overlook such a beautiful game that aims to put a twist on the traditional Metroidvania formula. You see, in Dandara, up is down and down is up. In other words, gravity doesn't apply and you can stand on any surface, whether it's the floor, the ceiling, or a vertical wall. Think of it as Metroid meets Mario Galaxy. To take advantage of the zero-gravity environment, you can grapple to any surface using a hookshot with controls that were developed from the ground up for Nintendo Switch. The developers, who consist of only 2 friends who met while making games in their spare time, promise exciting combat, intriguing puzzles, and a world that opens up as you progress through the story. Fingers crossed. Nine Parchments, a self-proclaimed magical blast-em-up, is another game that's aiming to release in 2017, but it hasn't nailed down a specific date and they're running out of time, so it makes the list. In a nutshell, this game looks like Diablo with wizards. You cast spells, you collect loot, you level up, and you do it all over again. It's a simple formula, but games that do it well are hard to put down, and with a heavy emphasis on couch co-op, this game seems like a pretty rad fit for the Switch if you ask me. It's also worth noting that the game takes place in the Trine universe. That's no surprise because it's being developed by Frozen Byte, developers of the generally well-received Trine trilogy, and that's reason enough to keep this game on your radar. That said, if it doesn't pan out, at least it's pretty. Very, very pretty. If you haven't checked out the charming and quirky challenge that is a Shovel Knight game by now, you're doing it wrong. The series has given us some of the best, most pure 16-bit platforming experiences that don't involve a dusty old cartridge. This time around, you play as King Knight with a special shoulder slam ability that lets you not only smash through enemies, walls, and traverse through mid-air, but also bounce off foes similar to Shovel Knight. Developer Yacht Club promises a much more varied set of 30 levels, and perhaps the biggest addition is a strategic collectible card game that's woven throughout the main campaign. Shovel Knight King of Cards is set to release on Nintendo Switch in early 2018. Next up is a challenging game that surprised a lot of people when it was unexpectedly announced for Switch just several months ago. Darkest Dungeon is a roguelike, the title of which describes where the game takes you both literally and mentally. Yep, this game is dark, but a quick glance at reviews for the console and PC versions will tell you it's also very good. To start the game, you discover, you guessed it, a dungeon. You then send your party of poor saps into the catacombs to die over and over again. Each descent into darkness has you weighing your party's abilities against your own appetite for progress. Can you make it just a little bit further? Only experimentation will tell. Enemy encounters play out in strategic turn-based battles, and while the combat itself is engaging, It's the layers of character customization and preparation that make Darkest Dungeon such a deep and rewarding experience. A specific release date hasn't been given for the Switch version, so let's hope for sooner rather than later. Next up is Celeste, a platforming experience that touts itself quite simply as a game about climbing a mountain. But after just a few minutes, it becomes clear that the biggest mountain you'll have to overcome is your own self-doubt, because Celeste is downright tough. The game boasts 600 plus levels, and they're all relatively short, which is good because you die a lot in this game. The brevity of each stage means you never have to retread too much ground, and the lightning quick respawns mean you're never far from the temptation to try again. The core mechanics are basic, but the game quickly adds new mechanics like enemies that follow your exact path, run into one and you're toast, and a celestial jelly that lets you traverse horizontally as well as vertically without the pull of gravity. After the game introduces a few of these elements, they quickly begin to stack on top of one another, and it becomes clear that Celeste is not just a test of your Twitch platforming skills, but also your puzzle-solving acumen, as some levels can require a fair amount of mental gymnastics. The game is also packed full of secrets, collectibles, and hidden areas, making this game a completionist dream. Look for Celeste in January of 2018. Coming in next is a game that blurs the lines between storytelling, art, and interactive entertainment. Kentucky Route Zero was initially developed as a 5-part episodic adventure for PC, and believe it or not, the first episode was released all the way back in January of 2013, and the final episode is finally set for release in January of 2018. Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition for the Nintendo Switch is also releasing in January of 2018 and will feature all 5 episodes in their complete form for your binging pleasure. The story follows Conway, an antique delivery driver who finds himself lost on the backroads of Kentucky. As the story unfolds through exploration and interactive dialogue, things take a turn for the bizarre, and you quickly realize that this particular corner of Kentucky is full of mystery and intrigue. The writing is consistently memorable, even poignant, which is critical, since so much of your interaction with the world takes place through the dialogue options that let you decide how your character develops. That said, if you aren't a fan of games that lack, well, gameplay, then this game might not be for you. Unlike many point-and-click adventures, there aren't many puzzles to solve. What is here is a sense of mystery and rock-solid storytelling that strings you along with entertaining writing, a striking visual style, and a potent sense of atmosphere that lifts Kentucky Route Zero above many of its adventure genre contemporaries. Next, we see one of 2016's indie darlings come to Switch with Owlboy. When this game was initially released on PC, it was met with near universal praise. This must have come as a relief to developer D-Pad Studio because crafting this game's alluring open world took nearly 10 years. Seriously, they started working on this game in 2007, and it's reported that they scrapped their progress entirely several times before building the game as it exists today. But the extra time and love paid off. The writing is great, the visuals are rich and detailed, and the controls are tight. You play as Otis, an owl-human hybrid who has the ability to fly, roll, and spin around the map, but that's about it. To fully explore the world, you must rely on other characters in the game, each of whom has their own weapon that provides you with the means to reach previously inaccessible areas. As you trudge on, you encounter bosses and several one-off gameplay segments that keep things interesting. Graphically, the game is beautiful and has an aesthetic reminiscent of some of the better-looking Sega Genesis titles of the 90s. Think Echo the Dolphin, but set in the sky instead of the sea, and with a well-executed Metroidvania slant. And if there's one area where this game outclasses nearly every 16-bit game, it's the music. The soundtrack to this game is absolutely gorgeous. All in all, if you like 2D platforming with a retro flair and can't resist a vivid world to explore, Owlboy is a must-play. Best of all, it releases for Nintendo Switch on February 18th, 2018, so you won't have to wait very long. Coming in at number 2 is Morphy's Law, a third-person multiplayer shooter built around one simple gameplay mechanic. When you score a hit on another player, you transfer a little bit of mass from your opponent to you. In other words, you get bigger and your opponent gets smaller. Expert players who score a lot of hits grow large. Less skilled players become smaller and harder to see. This has a very interesting and rather genius effect. It automatically balances gameplay for all skill levels by virtue of the fact that the better you are, the easier of a target you become. Even more brilliant is that each match changes depending on your size. For example, if you're small, you can hide easily, and conversely, large players can see over walls and buildings, giving them a distinct line of sight advantage. It's one of those gameplay twists that's so smart, it makes you wonder why nobody has pulled it off before. You can even use friendly fire to shrink teammates so they can reach advantageous locations. The possibilities are staggering, and as you would hope, the game supports both online and local multiplayer and offers several game modes. If you love shooters or you've wanted to get into one but always felt outmatched or outgunned, then Morphy's Law is definitely a game to check out. The current launch window is mid-December 2017 through mid-March 2018. But the developers have made it clear that they're not going to release the game until it's good and ready. Next on the list is the latest addition to one of the most irreverent and beloved series for the Nintendo Wii. No More Heroes Travis Strikes Again, while not a direct sequel to No More Heroes 2, has been described by its creator, Suda51, as both the start of something new for the franchise, as well as a stepping stone to a potential No More Heroes 3. Not much is known about the gameplay, but one thing is for sure. When it comes to the game's premise, it's as indie games get. You reprise your role as Travis Touchdown, who's now being hunted by an ex-pro baseball player named Badman for murdering his daughter. Somehow, at some point, Travis and Badman get sucked into a previously unreleased video game console, and it's there that the two battle it out inside 6 different indie video games. When this synopsis was revealed along with the trailer, it created some confusion, not because it's so bizarre, but because the trailer clearly shows Travis playing Hotline Miami. People naturally thought Hotline Miami was one of the playable games inside Travis Strikes Again. Not only that, but Suda51 had mentioned that multiple indie games would be featured inside Travis Strikes Again, including Hotline Miami, as well as Shovel Knight and Serious Sam. However, Suda51 later clarified that these real-world indie games would only be present as a cosmetic edition on in-game t-shirts. The playable games would be entirely new experiences. This came as a disappointment to some, but given that Travis Strikes Again marks the return of No More Heroes, a series known for flipping the bird to traditional video game conventions, all while paying reverence to indie and retro video game culture, it's going to be fascinating to see where Suda51 takes us next. Outside of a 2018 release window, no specific release date has been set. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the entire video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, and if you really want to help me grow my channel, all it takes is clicking that subscribe button. Until the next time, we'll see you soon.